In the end, the officers took Dahmer at his word that the 14-year-old boy was an adult. They left Konarak with Dahmer in the living room. Back at the squad car, they chuckled about the unique domestic disturbance.
Intoxicated Asian naked male was returned to his sober boyfriend, and
Dahmer later confessed that moments after the officers left, he strangled Konarak and had sex with the body. He took pictures as he dismembered the corpse and then put the torso in the big blue vat. Dahmer kept the skull.
Basic law enforcement practices were not followed.
When the story of the incident broke after Dahmer's arrest, Police Chief Philip Ariola suspended the 3 officers. The incident ignited the gay and minority communities into weeks of rallies, vigils, and protests over police insensitivity.
It's nice that you suspended the people, but we don't want anybody suspended. We want to be treated with dignity.
Milwaukee's mayor would call it the most traumatic time in the city's history. Not long after he killed Konarak Sinthasumthon, Dahmer lost his job at the chocolate factory. He was broke, behind on his rent, and spending all his money on cruising and buying materials for disposing of the bodies. The one momentary pleasure for him was sex, which inevitably led to murder. Dahmer would kill 4 more young men before Tracy Edwards was lucky enough to escape on July 22nd, 1991. The trial of Jeffrey Dahmer opened on January 30th, 1992, 6 months after his arrest. A bulletproof shield divided the spectators from the participants. It was an audience filled largely with victims' families, as well as Dahmer's father and stepmother. Jeffrey Dahmer did not testify at the trial. He had already pleaded guilty to the killings. The only question was his sanity at the time of the murders. If found insane, Dahmer would be housed in a mental institution. The burden of proving he was not sane fell to the defense.
I think everybody's initial reaction is, you have to be nuts to do something like this. And that is the first reaction of everybody. That's one thing to say that. It's another thing to prove it. And in order to prove it, you must show psychosis.
Psychosis is that particular mental malady where the person can't understand reality. When they think a stick is a bat, or they fear that a human being is a devil, that type of unreality. One of the more famous ones, the Son of Sam case, where the man was taking orders from a dog.
At least he said he was. Serial killer David Berkowitz, known as the Son of Sam, murdered 6 young women in New York in the mid-1970s. When he was apprehended, Berkowitz said he was insane. It was not convincing to the judge, who found him competent to stand trial. He was sentenced to life in prison. In the Dahmer trial, the jury first had to determine if the killer had a mental disease, and if he did, was he able to understand that his actions were wrong? And further, was he able to act in accordance with the law? Dahmer's defense was that his mental illness was necrophilia, and that his sexual urges toward dead bodies became so strong that he couldn't stop himself from killing. As the prosecution saw it, Dahmer was not crazy, but slowly accepted the idea of killing.
Certainly as Jeffrey Dahmer first thought of the idea of having sex with an unconscious man and then a dead man, certainly it shocked him, but he kept turning over the fantasy in his mind. Finally it became tolerable, and then he decided to act out on the fantasy, to realize it.
And when he did kill, McCann argued, he was sane and even methodical. Dahmer would most often cruise for victims on Fridays, so he would have the weekend to enjoy and dispose of the bodies. If he didn't meet someone on Friday, he wouldn't kill that week. Dahmer never attacked on the street, only in the controlled environment of his apartment. He never picked up anyone with a car, because he figured abandoned cars